Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Baby Lock. In celebration of National Serger Month, Baby Lock is offering a free Koala Studios Serger Center with the purchase of a Baby Lock Triumph 8-thread serger at manufacturer's suggested retail price. The Baby Lock Triumph is packed with top-of-the-line features, such as easy push-button needle and looper threading. Plus, during the month of April, with any new Baby Lock serger purchase, Baby Lock will donate to a charity of your choice. Visit babylock.com to learn more.
Hi, and welcome to a bonus episode of Sewing with Threads, the podcast by the staff of Threads Magazine. This is our first issue preview podcast, and we're going to give you a sneak peek into number 218, our summer 2022 issue. I'm with our senior technical editor, Carol Frazier.
Hello.
And our art director, Stephen Fleck.
Hello.
218 will be reaching subscribers on Wednesday, April 20th. And if you're not yet a subscriber, you can find it on newsstands starting Tuesday, May 2nd. And this was a fun issue to work on. And I wanted to start off with the cover, which, of course, Stephen designed. You want to tell us a little bit about the cover, Stephen?
Sure. I wore yellow today for the cover because it's a very bright and colorful cover. We actually ended up going with a model photo for this cover of a Susan Calgie dress. And it was a really fun cover to work on. Just, it's the summer issue. So we want it to be really bright and colorful and attention grabbing. And yeah.
I think the dress that Susan made is all of those things. And that dress ties into a great story that Susan did. It's actually our Essential Techniques department. And she talks about how you can face a side seam zipper so that it conforms to that curve that you might want to build into the side seam. And I remember talking with her about the dress. And, Susan has fantastic taste, being one of our contributing editors and a great author. She has so much experience. And we really like the idea of like this lemony, citrusy yellow. And I think you did a wonderful job playing with the font colors and treatments on the cover to bring that out too.
Yeah, it was really fun to work with. I remember even at the photo shoot, we were talking about the dress and just how beautiful it photographed. And it's like just looks like lemon ice. So I wanted to go a really like citrusy, summery, just really fun and bright cover to match the dress.
Just last week, I was inspired by your cover and I made lemon squares. And I am not a baker at all, but I was really inspired by it. It just looked so delicious. And I think it plays with a lot of the other garments and the other designs within the issue. I think when people read it, they'll get a sense of how warm and summery and light things feel throughout.
Well, speaking of light gossamer things, Carol, you worked on a fantastic story from Kenneth King.
Yes, it's a story on how to make a jacket out of Guipure lace, which is wonderful. It's such a classic kind of a fabric. And it's the example that he made is this beautiful kind of a pearly gray, a little bit on the silvery side. So if you're not into citrus colors, there's this wonderful, cool color that is a terrific summer neutral. And the jacket is beautiful. It's backed. The lace has to be backed because it has a certain amount of stretch and give. And the article is about how you attach tulle to the back to hold it so that to stabilize the lace, and then how to create these wonderful applique seams that give the entire jacket a seamless look. It takes time. There's a lot of basting and a lot of couture techniques involved, but none of them are hard. I think anybody who has any patience could really do this and up their game a lot in the process. And it's the kind of jacket, the one that he made is a very simple jacket with a bound edge, no closures or anything, just really easy to kind of layer on over anything. So I would say that there are ways to make this work for any kind of style that you like. If you want kind of a dressy jacket, it can go, very evening or summer wedding, or, there's Guipure lace in multicolors. I think Kenneth himself made one that was largely black with a lot of bright jewel tones in it. And it made this great looking sort of almost ethnic, but not exactly, kind of an appearance. So this technique is fun. I think that a lot of people could find use in it. And then you make the jacket and you have it forever.
And Stephen, we had a real challenge with that story, didn't we? With making sure the labels and arrows were visible on that dense lace.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure as readers would know that there are just some of those stories that, either a highly textured background or just something that's just that perfect color that is so hard to put labels on top of to make them really be able to be seen. Because they just, they're so small, and then you have a highly textured fabric or lace jacket in this instance. And so I really did try to make sure that everything is visible. You can tell where what every arrow is pointing to. We really want to just make sure that everything pops off the page and you can see it right away and not have any trouble finding things.
And Kenneth, of course, is quite a pro at this sort of thing. And so there are multiple basting stages in the process of making this jacket. And each stage, he used a different color thread. So if you're reading the article, you'll be able to sort of make your way through reds, oranges, pinks, blues, greens. Well, I hate to say that 5 times. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say that our authors and the editors, we try to put a lot of thought into what colors we're using. And not only in terms of fashion, because Stephen comes up with a palette for every issue, that applies to the stories and to pattern review. We try to have a certain idea of what everything's going to look like, but also the contrast thread in a lot of the steps for stories.
Yeah, I think that's what people don't realize is that, usually you wouldn't use contrast thread depending on, you want it to blend in. So we really do appreciate the very different color thread, just so that you can really see every part of the technique and everything that goes into.
Yeah. And I think, Stephen, the way you design, like the thread style of having the step and the photo right there, is not something that I see in every tutorial publication. And that is a challenge, sometimes getting things to be the right size, to fit in a page and have good flow.
Oh, yeah.
So
what people might not see or know is that we have to go through the whole process of just making a story the perfect length, for the content, and whether that means going up in page count sometimes. I feel like we rarely ever go down. There's always a lot of information to get in.
That's true.
So yeah, a lot of stuff happening on the back end that people might not realize.
Yes, Stephen and Sarah and I negotiating about can you make this one step be 2 steps? Can you make these 2 steps be 1 step that's half the size of one of the original steps? Can you change the add an extra photo because we really need it to understand how this step works? And there's a lot of teamwork trying to make sure that every explanation is clear and that it's easy to read it down the page, that you can follow it on the page as well.
Yes. And I was also thinking about the time frame, the timeline we work with too, and that we finish the issue about 6 weeks before, about 4 weeks before it gets to anybody, and about 6 weeks before it gets to newsstand. And all of the getting in manuscripts and taking photos, that all comes weeks and weeks before that. And there are so many steps up to the completion of the process.
That's what I always find so interesting too, is, working on a summer issue in the middle of February or like it's snowing outside and we're getting into, everything summer in the issue. So it's always fun to be in that, out of season mindset. Yes.
And we didn't ask any of the models to go outside this time.
Yeah.
We have occasionally done that. And we have had some models who are really great sports and like walking around in summer dresses in November. But we try to be very nice to our models and make sure that they don't get too cold and everything.
So they always do such a great job.
Yeah. And I think our cover model, Christina, we had worked with her before, and I have seen her in a lot of the sewing pattern catalogs too, and other publications.
Yeah, she was great. You'll just be flipping through the issue and it's Christina. So she was such a great model to work with, really versatile in all of her looks, and just a breeze. We love that.
Yes. Now, in pattern review, the looks that we show in the magazine, I don't know if people know that they are actually put on a model. We usually do that at the beginning of our shoot day, and the model will work without hair and makeup to be a form inside of the garments, because we bring them to the shoot, and then our stylist adds in styling garments too. And Stephen, you work with our photographer, Jack, to get those positioned just right.
Oh, yeah. It would be interesting if people could see behind the scenes just how picky we get at shoots. Sarah and I will be standing there watching the model, and we're like looking so close, and it's like minor, fixes of like, will you bring your arm out 1 more inch? We're just going to go fix this little drag line or wrinkle or something really quick. And it's really is surprising how much more goes into it than you would think. But it is, I do like having it on the model. I think that it does bring some extra life to some of the garments that, when it might just be on a dress form, it might be a little more, lifeless. So it is always fun. That's a fun part of the shoot. And I'm sure the models appreciate not having to be in hair and makeup at, the 8 a.m., whatever time it is.
Yeah. So. And that's when we shoot the 360s also, where the models stand on a turntable and then get rotated into 12 different positions all the way around and have photos taken the whole way. And then that gets assembled into the 360 views that you can also see online. That's very fun. Stephen, you've done a 360, I know.
I have.
I've done a 360 also, not in a nice garment. I did a 360 to show how badly one of my jackets fit me. That was great. We never used it, I'm happy to say, but I got to do the twirl on the turntable. I think some of the models look at it like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
And the other ones jump right on. They're super happy. Have a fun time doing it.
Yeah. We survived.
Yeah.
And I think that very eagle-eyed readers will notice that we recently changed how we shoot the shoes with pattern review garments. So, Stephen, how did that change?
So we've always looked at pattern review, and I think the readers do really appreciate us including accessories and kind of like a little bit of styling suggestions to go with these different patterns. I always had a problem with the shoes a little bit. So that's why we did end up changing them to look more 3-dimensional, look more like the outfit does, on a form or a model. So I think it did help. I hope that readers do maybe recognize that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think which issue we started that. And you can go back and see. We used to shoot the shoes kind of lying on their sides. And now Stephen's shooting them so that they are standing up and they look 3-dimensional. And, if anybody's wondering how we get the back neck in the garment too, if it's being worn by someone, we shoot that separately at the end of the day in a flat lay. And that's when we shoot the accessories too.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not
all at different times.
Yeah.
But we get to open the day with pattern review and then close the day with pattern review. So it's always fun.
Now, we try to have a definite mix in every issue. And that is going to include some things that are more fashion oriented, some things that are technique oriented. And we always try to have an element of fitting because that's so important. And Carol worked on a story in this issue with a new author. And I think it's really going to resonate with a lot of readers. Do you want to talk about that story, Carol?
Sure. I became aware of Ruth Collins through social media. People started posting these sort of pants fitting posts on Instagram, which I follow, and they always had this hashtag top down, center out, which is a method of fitting I hadn't heard of. So I followed up on this various ways and discovered Ruth Collins, who is in her regular day life a scientist and approaches fitting with the mind of somebody who's really very logical and very scientific, but also interested in style, interested in how patterns are made and how they can fit the entire range of human bodies that's out there. And it's a really wonderful, and I really think a kind of a revolutionary, interesting way to fit a pair of pants. So you start at the top, you start at the waist, and you work your way down to make sure that you're working with half a muslin, just one side of the pants. You center it on the body, and then you work your way out and kind of drape it to fit around to the side of your body. And there's a lot of thought behind it that's really interesting and that makes a lot of sense, so that fitting is easier and more accurate. But at the same time, she's boiled it down to these steps that are just doable, completely doable by yourself. I think you could. I did a sort of a mini test of the process, because there's an illustration in the story trying to show you're standing between two mirrors so that you can see your front and back at the same time. This saves you from the usual way that you fit, where you twist yourself around and try to pin and then wreck the fit by doing that. Mm-hmm. In this case, you just have the two mirrors set up so that you can see your front and back together, and then you move the muslin around on your body until it settles into the place that works for you, and then you work out from there. So Stephen was going to do this drawing, but it's if you can imagine a figure that's reflected into two mirrors simultaneously, front and back. It's not something that you can make up out of your head easily. So he asked me if I would set up some mirrors in my house, take some pictures, so he had some reference to work on this. So I did that. And because I'm a Threads editor, I have half a pair of pants in my house that fits me sort of. Not something everybody has, but I do. And so I was able to sort of mock up this process. And even doing just the mock up, it was really interesting. Trying to fit half a pair of pants versus a full pair of pants, you'd be surprised at how easy or how much easier it feels when you do that, because there's the garment is not being pulled from the other side while you're working on one side. It's not getting caught on anything. You're just getting it to work on your body and adjusting it to the curves that you have and where they're positioned. And it's really very doable and very, I feel like it will lead to success for people who are starting out sewing. People who have experience should give it a try, because you don't need to have a partner to help you fit. And, it's a different method because you start with the pattern that you want to sew. A lot of times, and I'm an advocate of this method too, for people, it would be to fit a very basic pair of pants and then alter that for style, if that's how you like to do it. But if you like to try a lot of different new patterns, then you can do it. Each one of the patterns you can fit this way and you'll get the different look. They're all cut to look different and they will wind up looking different. So it's pretty interesting and fun. I think, Ruth and I did a podcast that will come out in another week or so. So if you listen to the Threads podcast, you'll hear Ruth talking about her method too.
Mm-hmm. And for me, it was a really interesting story to work on as well, because, usually we'll get references and different types of things for illustrations and techniques that go into the magazine. And Ruth actually is a little proficient in some of the same programs that we use. So Ruth actually did a lot of her own illustrations that appear in the story. And so that's always fun to get something like that from an author that usually I'm behind the scenes doing, but it was fun to get that from Ruth this time.
Well, I should mention to our audience that, Stephen, you're a very talented illustrator, and we're very lucky that you have that ability. And I was wondering, do you usually work from life or from models for the mirror illustration? Mm-hmm. How did you create that? What did you start with?
So that was, as Carol mentioned, I think I messaged her one day and was like, I'm just really having a problem with this. It would really help me if you could set this up. And, I even a lot of the times will work from multiple images to, get the best parts of the separate images into one, especially the technical illustrations. But luckily this time, Carol sent me a few photos. And one of them was just perfect for the illustration. So what I do is I bring that photo as a reference into a program where I clean it up. It's more of just doing like a fine line illustration, just so that you get all the important parts of whatever the technique is. And so that's always fun. I think I've had Carol maybe do some other things before to help me out. Maybe even especially like at the shoots and things too. It's you would be surprised to see, or a lot of people would be surprised to see what might go into just even one simple illustration. And the looping process that we go through to get that perfect. And so thank you, Carol.
Well, thank you. I have to say thank you to Stephen, because when I provide him with what we call it scrap art, there's another article in this issue. It's the how did they sew that? No, is it? Yeah, it's how did they sew that? It's the button-on shawl. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to copy a cute vintage outfit that we found when we were working for the back cover, and it's a shawl that you button onto the back of a strapless dress. You button it to the upper edge of it, and then it comes over the front and hangs down. So it's kind of cute. And as I was working out how to draft this pattern, I ended up making the pattern, obviously, and it's full size and it's pencil lines on white piece of paper. And I said, here, just photograph this pattern and then draw from that. And I don't know how Stephen even sees it, because to me in the photos, it just looks like a piece of white paper that's a little bit rumpled. But, he manages to draw over the lines, and then we work together to figure out which lines should be heavy or red or dark or removed because they were wrong, which happens sometimes, and where to put the extra dots and all that kind of thing. So it's definitely that too is a team effort.
Mm-hmm. The process.
Yeah. It's very difficult to get a pattern, a full-size pattern piece photographed accurately without distortion. Yeah. And I was thinking about something else that people may not realize you do, Stephen, is that the line drawings in pattern review, that you redo all of those with very careful reference to the actual garments, because we'll see things that might have missing details or just be in a different style. And we can't use the pattern company's line drawings anyways. So you redo all of those consistently.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of the times too, because I'm sure as people know that a lot of the pattern companies have the line illustrations that you see on the back of the pattern envelopes. And what we really try to do is have like the most accurate technical illustration based on what the clothes actually look like when they're finished. Because I think a lot of the pattern companies might take a little artistic license with some of the things. So especially the ones that are a little bit more... what's the right word? Like abstract or something that might not actually reflect what the finished garment is going to look like. So that's always fun to do. What the actual process is to take the photos at the model shoot, the ones that we talked about earlier without the models in. And so then I use those as reference to really get the most accurate line drawing possible from those photos. So that's always fun.
Yeah. And we have, it's mentioned in every pattern review article, but everything is tested in muslin first. Mm-hmm. And so we have muslin testers all around the country, and those don't even get photographed for the magazine, but we do reference them when we're making the sample garments and when you're doing the illustrations. Mm-hmm. And so that's an even more extended process. So it is March right now, and we just finished picking the patterns and muslins the patterns that are going to be made in muslin for the winter issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like that's what I was saying earlier. That out of season.
Yeah.
Or way ahead.
Our testers do. They won't just make one view. Often they'll make a view, and maybe they put two different sleeves on to reflect different options within the pattern. So the finished muslin is rarely looks like anything you could wear, but it tests all the the position of the pockets and different button locations or variations that are within the pattern. They check out each of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so grateful for that work that they do, and we have such great muslin testers. The notes, it's wonderful. Mm-hmm. And of course, Anna Mazer compiles all of that. So. Mm-hmm. Now, Carol, you worked on another great story for this issue, and that was the Association of Sewing and Design Professionals Challenge. that we have every year in Threads. And you come up with the themes. And I think this was a wonderful theme. Do you want to talk about it?
Yes, this is one of my favorite articles of the year. It's one of my favorite things overall of the year to do, honestly. The Association of Sewing and Design Professionals is a group of individuals who work in custom clothing, alterations, that sort of thing. Some of them are designers and they belong to, but we do a challenge every year. And this year's challenge was the Selvage Challenge. And the members of the group were asked to create a look that included at least 25% upcycled clothing and at least 36 inches of selvage from some fabric or other. And it was interesting. Some of the clothes were thrifted, some were purchased clothing that the designers had. One of the winners, Debbie Spence, who seems to show up in our winners list most years, had received back to herself an outfit that she had made for a client that she really, really was close friends with, and had made this outfit probably 10 or 15 years ago. The client passed away and the family gave back this outfit to Debbie, and she wanted to turn it into something that she could wear herself. So she reduced it in size and changed many of the details on it and made a really beautiful jacket, skirt, and top look that's, really nice and feels good to her to wear because it reminds her of this person that she really enjoyed working with. So that was good. And the other part of this challenge was the look was meant to be appropriate for your work environment, whatever that could be. And when you see the issue, you'll see that it's a pretty wide range because we had people submitting things who work from home. They work from home. They work in a casual, creative environment. So there were some, jeans and a top, and all the way from that to a really sharp pantsuit that is quite high style. It looks really great. And, Debbie has a skirt and jacket. There was another skirt and jacket outfit skirt and dress, actually. I mean, dress and jacket, pardon me. Look that took the overall top prize. And so a lot of variety, really well sewn, really interesting and inspiring pieces.
Carol, what is the challenge for next year?
Oh, I can't believe you're asking me this, and it's not that I don't remember. I don't remember all the aspects of it, but it is to be inspired by something vintage. And the designers were asked to go online to the Commercial Pattern Archive, which is a division of the University of Rhode Island in their special collections of their library, where it's a huge archive full of vintage patterns, and you can go online and you need to sort of join, but it's free, and you can search and scroll through patterns. The covers of patterns, and sometimes a little bit of the interior material from the 19th century to probably the 1990s, maybe well into the 2000s. I'm not sure how contemporary it is, but you can search by garment type and year and brand name and all kinds of things. So they're meant to go there, pick a couple of garments, 2 or 3 garments, up to 3, and come up with a design based on those patterns that they've seen. And I'm not asking them to duplicate anything, just find a detail that they like and incorporate it into something that's contemporary.
I think it's
and you don't have to, you don't have to be an ASTP member to join that. I mean, to go to the Commercial Pattern Archive. If you are interested in vintage clothing at all, I recommend that you go to their website and Commercial Pattern Archive, and I think it's COPA.com. I can't remember, but I think if you search it by that title, you'll find it. And just browse around in there. There's so much good stuff to see.
There was an article I had a lot of fun working on, and we received many questions from readers in our forums, members of our audience, asking about sewing machines and how to select a sewing machine. And so Rachel Gilbert Burns, she's an author that Carol worked with previously on an article about projector sewing. I worked with her on her process for selecting a sewing machine. So she talks about this entire checklist that she goes through in her mind, and it's a very thoughtful approach. And I think that she she doesn't leave anything out, really. I thought it was quite comprehensive. And I think we're going to be able to turn that into a web extra where you can have this checklist printed out and take it with you. She does very much recommend trying to test a machine in person, because you really need to put it through its paces. And it's nice to be in an environment where definitely if somebody can help you with the features on the machine and give you a chance to actually experience it. And she just recently created a booklet about her projector sewing process that you can see on her website. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes for this episode. And Carol, you also worked on two stories with Katrina Walker, who has worked with us for a long time.
Yes, the big one was the story of silk, which is an article about how silk comes to be. And it is the article that made me have to overcome my phobia of caterpillars because there's a picture of silkworms in it. And I really thought, I'm not going to be able to look at this, but I was. They're fine. And it's so interesting. I mean, I think most people know that silk comes from a silkworm, but the process is quite fascinating. A little different from what I thought. I also learned that there are other moths that create, silk in their cocoons that can be collected and used. Different species of moths. And the thing that I found the most useful for me as a sewer in this article was that Katrina describes the difference between reeling the filament off a cocoon, which is what we all imagine to happen. You can reel this very, very fine string off it, and it's like up to a mile of filament, just one long, long string. Some cocoons, you can do that. Other cocoons are slightly damaged or they've had something else happen to them. And you can't do that. Instead, the silk is kind of pulled off and carded or combed the way you would do like cotton, like a cotton ball, or even wool, like a staple fiber that's shorter lengths. And that silk is then spun into yarns the way that you would spin cotton or you would spin other short stapled fibers. And that kind of silk is used to make silk noil and some of the other varieties of silk that are a little bit more toothy. They don't have the same kind of sheen as filament silk. And as Katrina points out, they behave much more like something like cotton or linen or wool. Therefore, they're actually easier to sew. But they have some of the same properties of filament silk, of reeled silk, in that they are good for insulation and, they're hypoallergenic for many people. So if you're interested in silk, but you don't really want to deal with something like, chiffon or something that's really slithery charmeuse, noil is a good one. I think Matka is made that same way. And it can give you sort of an entree into sewing with silk.
Well, it was a fascinating article to go over, Carol. And I was really interested, too, to learn that the different moths or different caterpillars can create different colored cocoons.
Yes, there's some very rare ones that spin either pale green or slightly a light gold colored cocoon. Sometimes that gold will wash out. Apparently that's the gum in some cases, and it will wash out and become white. But some of them are actually gold. And these are really rare. They're not cultivated in any way. So in order to collect enough, you have to, I guess, roam around in a forest of some of them are oak, I guess, and pluck the cocoons out of the trees, which that has limited appeal to me as a way of getting kind of like the fabric
equivalent of truffles, I guess. So,
yes.
Yeah, you'd have to search them out.
Yeah.
Well, we've come to the end of our time, and I think we've covered a good sampling of what is in the issue. We actually have a lot more in this issue. And as I said, look for it. It's going to be on newsstands in early May. And if you are a subscriber, you'll see it right around April 20th. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening. Follow Threads on social media and visit threadsmagazine.com to view show notes for this episode. While you're on the site, check out Threads Insider, our online membership with exclusive access to expert sewing techniques. Until next time, keep on sewing with Threads.